with your quiz. So as you know, we have started with the quadratic equations and their sign. So let us remember together what's the meaning of a quadratic equation. So a quadratic equation, it's an equation that contains one unknown, which is x, and also it's written in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0. Of course, a cannot be 0 because if it's 0, then we won't have x to the power 2, which makes the quadratic equation. So it's the second degree equation. So as you see, we have ax squared plus bx plus c. A, b, c are called the coefficients of the equation. As an example, we have 2x squared minus 3x plus 5 equals to 0. 2 is A, minus 3 is B, and 5 is C. So we have x squared, so this is called a quadratic equation. Let us continue. How we find the solution of a quadratic equation? If it was first degree equation, you know that we put the variable to a side and the number to a side, and we find the value of x. Some of the second degree equations, you can find the solution directly if you can factorize them. But some of the equations, you cannot factorize them. So how can I find their solution? In order to find the solution of the quadratic equation, we usually find the discriminant. What's the discriminant? It's called the delta of the equation. Delta, it's b squared minus 4ac. Okay, b squared, a, b, c are the coefficients of the equation. So we find delta, okay? If delta is positive, if you calculated delta and you get a positive answer, means I have two roots. The first root is found using minus b minus radical delta over 2a. And the second rule is minus b, the second root is minus b plus radical delta over 2a, okay? If delta equals to 0, then we have only one root, or one double root, okay? x1 equals x2 equals minus b over 2a. And if delta is negative, then we don't have root, we don't have real roots, okay? Let us take an example. The first example is, we have 8x squared, okay, minus 2x or plus 2x minus 3. This is an equation, and we need to solve it. The first thing you have to do is to find delta. What's delta? Or first of all, A equals 8, B equals 2, and C equals minus 3. Delta is b squared minus 4ac, so it's 100. Delta is positive, right? Delta is positive. And we said that if delta is positive, we have two distinct roots, two different roots. What are they? The first root is minus b plus radical delta over 2a. And the second root is minus b minus radical delta over 2a. So you calculate, you just replace the b by its value, the delta by its value, and the a by its value. So we will get two distinct roots. The first one is half, and the second one is minus 3 over 4. So we have two distinct roots in this equation. Example number 2. In example number 2, we have x squared plus x plus 3. A is 1, B is 1, and C is 3. So when you calculate the discriminant or delta, you will get minus 11. And we said that whenever the delta is negative, we have no real roots. Let us take the third example. In this example, we have x squared plus 6x plus 9. So A is 1, B is 6, and C is 9. So the delta equals to 0. So we have two double roots. It's one double root. x1, equals x2 equals minus b over 2a, which is minus 3, okay? These are important tips to make your calculation easier. If a plus b plus c equals to 0, then no need to calculate the delta. You can directly write that the first root is 1 and the second root is c over a. If a minus b plus c equals to 0, then the first root is minus 1 and the second root is minus c over a. These are important notes because they make your calculation easier. So instead of calculating the delta, then finding the roots, you can find them directly. Let us take an example. We have x squared plus 2x minus 3. A is 1, b is 2, and c is minus 3. So if you do a plus b plus c, you will get 0. So directly the first root is 1, and the second root is c over a, which is minus 3. So no need to calculate the delta or finding the roots using the equation, okay? Now we have the sum of and the product of the roots. The sum of the roots and the product of the roots. When you say the sum of the roots, so x1 plus x2 is minus b over a, and the product x1 times x double prime, it's equal to c over a. So you can now write the equation. So if you have the sum and the product of the roots, you can find the quadratic equation itself. So suppose, for example, I told you that the equation have a sum of 2 and a product of 3. The roots, their sum are 2 and the product is 3. Can you write for me, please, the quadratic equation? You can directly write it using this equation. So x squared minus 2x plus 3 equals to 0. And this is the quadratic equation. You can write it directly. So there is a relation between the sum and the product and the equation itself. Let us continue. Now we need to study the sign of the quadratic equation. So we need to know when the equation is positive and when the equation is negative. Last year, we already learned how to find the sign of a polynomial function or an equation. Sorry, we used to factorize the equation, to put the roots in a table, and we used to do the sign of each factor alone. In this case, we are going to find the sign of this function without writing each factor form alone. If the delta is negative, then the equation itself will take the sign of a. What's a? The coefficient of x squared. If delta is 0, then we have only one root, okay? Before the root, opposite sign of a, and after the root, same sign of a. I will make an example to make everything clear. If delta is positive, then in this case, we have two roots, okay? The first root and the second root, we put them on the table. If a is positive, every time we have inside the roots opposite sign of a. So if a is positive, then this is negative, positive, positive. If a if a is negative, then inside the root we have positive and outside negative and negative. I will take an example to make things clear. I will share this. Okay, let us take an example. Okay. We'll open a new slide. Just a second. Suppose we have this equation, x squared plus 8x plus 1 equals to 0. Okay, I will take another example, which is easier to find it by using ABC, okay? I will take x squared plus 2x minus 3, okay? A is 1, B is 2, and C is minus 3. This is A plus B plus C equals to 0. So the first root, x1, is 1, and the second root, x2, is it's C over A, which is minus 3. And now I need to discuss the sign of this equation. So I draw a table. Now, sorry, I didn't like the line. Okay. Last year, we used to put every factor alone. This year, no need to factorize it. You put directly minus 3 and 1. You put them in this way. Both of them are roots. You put here the equation, I think it's called f of x, for example. And now, you look at A. Is A positive or negative? A is positive. So inside the root, opposite sign of A, outside the root, same sign of A. So now we can say that this equation is positive from minus infinity to minus 3, union 1 plus infinity. And this equation is negative between minus 3 and 1. So that's how we study the sign of the function. So I think this one is easier because last year we used to factorize, to put the first factor alone and the second factor alone, then find their product, to find at the end the sign. In this way, just quickly, inside the roots, opposite sign of A. If A is positive, then inside the root negative. If A is negative, then inside the root is positive.